Hey, this is Mr. Ng going over your, that's the wrong date, should be quiz number 10, earn your grade. Set F, use a calculator to find the following, give ratios to 4 decimal places and angles to the nearest tenth. So, if you're finding an angle, then you're rounding to the nearest tenth. If you're getting a ratio, that's 4 decimal places. Some of you guys struggle with that. So, for example, sine of 70. Sine of 70 is a ratio because it's the opposite over the hypotenuse. And that's what a ratio is. It's basically a fraction. Well, we don't know what the two sides are, but we do know their ratio, which is a decimal. So if I put in sine of 70, I get 0.9396, and I round to the nearest 4 decimal places, it said, so that would be a 7. Cosine pi over 6, you can do a couple of things. You can convert that into degrees, because I'm already in degree mode. That's one way of doing it. So my awesome proportion, degrees over 360 equals radians over 2 pi. So over here I have 2 pi over 6 divided by 2 pi degrees over 360. And I'm going to cross multiply. So I'm going to get degrees times 2 pi equals pi over 6 times 360. And then I'm going to get 6 goes into 360 60 times, so I have 60 pi. And then I'm going to divide both sides by 2 pi, and then I get degrees equals 30. So essentially what you're doing is you're finding a 30-degree angle of cosine. Let's put that into our calculators. Cosine of 30, and then gives you 0.8660. Another one is you could have also converted, change the mode to radians. And if you did cosine of second pi divided by 6, you get the same answer. Tangent of 14, this is in degrees, so I'm going to have to go to degree mode. Tangent of 14 gives me 2493. Over here, though, for question number 4, this A here is an angle. Remember, it's always the trig function and then an angle. So I'm going to switch those. To switch those, that means I'm going to do the inverse. Remember to show your arrows, very helpful. So there's my calculator ready equation of the inverse of sine right there. So second, 0.96, enter, and it gives me 73. And we said that we're going to round angles to the nearest tenth. So that would be 73.7 degrees. Same thing for cosine. Then I do the inverse because I did the switching of the arrows. 0.95 equals A. Here's my calculator ready equation. Go to, delete that. Second insert point. Get approximately 18.2 degrees. Down here, it tells us to solving for an angle, theta. So theta here from this starting position, this is the opposite side. This is the hypotenuse. This is the adjacent. I have SOHCAHTOA. I'm going to cross off anything with the opposite because there's no number there. So it's not sine, not tangent. I'm going to be using cosine. Cosine of theta is the adjacent over the hypotenuse. So it gives 12 over 15. Then I'm trying to solve for theta. It's an unknown, so we're going to do the switch. The switch is called the inverse. Calculator ready equation. Let's put that into our calculators. So what's the difference from the previous problem? The previous problem had a decimal, and this one just has a fraction. And you get approximately 36.9 degrees. So a couple of questions I may have asked. How are angles measured? Angles are measured in degrees and radians. Next question. Find the angle of smallest, so smallest possible positive. You basically think of a number between 0 and 360 degrees, or if that was in radians, just think of 0 to 2 pi. Find the angle of smallest possible measure coterminal with a given angle 1339. So we have this equation, the degree plus the number of rotations times if you have degrees or radians. So our given information is 1339. I need to think of a number of rotations. The answer is -3. -3 times 360 gives you -1080. If you subtract, you get 259. What does that look like visually? 1, 2, 3. So here you have 200 from the standard position. Theta here is 259 degrees. Essentially, if you went the other way, if you did one more full rotation, you would add 360. That's 1 rotation, 2 rotations, and 3 rotations. So you would have to flip that around, that spinner around 3 times, and you would get 1339. But if you go the other direction, the negative angles going towards clockwise, to unwind it to get to 259, you'll see that you end up in the same position there in quadrant 3. Another simple way of thinking about it is just 1339 minus 360. Does that make sense? You just keep doing that. I get 979. So if you subtract 360 again, I get 619. So again, this number is not between 0 and 360, not between 0 and 360. And I get 259. 259 is between 0 and 360. A couple of questions I may have asked. What does coterminal mean? Coterminal basically means it's just basically the same terminal side or the same position, but ends in using a different number of rotations. I might have asked you, how would you describe positive angles? Positive angles are counterclockwise, or I may have asked you, how would you describe negative angles? That would be clockwise. And then I might ask, where do you start? And then the answer would be standard position. Let's try some more questions. Set D plus, find cotangent theta given that sine of theta equals 3/4 and theta is in quadrant 2. So here is my coordinate plane, and then I started to do in quadrant 1, and then I saw this hint that I'm in quadrant 2, and that changes things. What does it change? Well, sine is the opposite over the hypotenuse, or that's the elementary idea I want you to get down used to now, y over r. So from theta, reference angle inside, remember your bow tie, right? This is the bow tie, that's how you know where the reference angles are. So the y is 3, the r is 4, and then you're going to have to use Pythagorean theorem to get your other value. So Pythagorean theorem, your r squared is 4, y squared is 3. That gives you 16 and 9. If I subtract 9 from both sides, x squared equals 7. Take the square root of both sides. X is equal to actually plus or minus 7. And the reason why here it is a minus 7 is a couple of reasons. You were going left in the coordinate plane. When you go left, your x values are negative. A second reason why you know that is because we have this acronym, all students take calculus. That means in quadrant 2, sine is the only one that's positive. Everything else, and the one that we need to find, cotangent, is negative. So my answer should be negative. Well, cotangent is x over y, so cotangent of theta equals x over y. So my x value is negative radical 7, and my y value is 3, so my answer is negative radical 7 over 3. Maybe ask you some questions. Which trig functions are positive in quadrant 1, 2, 3, or 4? Remember, this tells you where they are positive. They're the functions like tangent and its reciprocal identity, cotangent, are positive, and then the other 4 trig functions are negative. Why is it negative? Is another question. The answer is in quadrant 2, only sine and cosecant are positive. Everything else is negative. You can also think of that if I did ask the question for the second quadrant, you can say the x values are negative, just like we did in that example. Question set C, evaluate the expression 7 times cotangent 90 minus 6 times cosine of 70. So these are the quadrantal angles, and the reason why they're the quadrantal angles because in our unit circle, this is 0, this is 0, 91, 80, 270, and then 360. So remember, it's unit circle, so it's 1 unit away because you don't have any numbers or order pairs. And then from here, for example, 90, you have the order pair 0, 1, and then if it's 0, 1, x is 0, y is 1, r is 1. So here we're trying to find a cotangent. So cotangent is x over y. So cotangent at 90 degrees is 0. Again, it's 0 because it's x over y at this location at 90 degrees. At 270, I need to find cosine. Well, your order pair from the origin is going down 1 because remember it's the unit circle. The radius is 1. So your x value is 0, y is negative 1, r is 1. R is always positive and it's always 1. And then I need cosine, which is x over r. So 0 divided by 1 is 0. So 7 times 0 is 0. And negative 6 times 0 is 0. 0 minus 0 is 0. This is the correct answer. A couple of questions I may have asked you. What's a quadrantal angle? The answer is that it lies on the x or the y axis. Here, 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 here. And then I might have asked you to show me or point to it. A lot of students, you should have been pointing at these exact locations. C+. Suppose that theta is in standard position and the given point is on the terminal side of theta. Give the exact value of the indicated trig function for theta. And then we have the order pair 15, 20, find secant of theta. So it's saying that theta is in standard position. So here's standard position in our coordinate plane. And it tells me 15, 20. So 15, 20 means x and y are both positive, so that we write 15 and then up 20. So 15, 20, you have x is 15, y is 20. To find secant, where's secant? There you are. I need r over x. So I need an r value, which means I'm going to have to use the Pythagorean theorem. R squared equals x squared plus y squared. Your r value is an unknown. X is 15. Y is 20. Remember, this means 20 squared. 20 times 20 is 400. 15 squared is 225. And you get 625. Take the square root. You get plus or minus 25. Remember, your r value will always be positive because it's a distance, radius. So then now I just do r over x, which is 25 over 15, and you reduce secant of theta equals 5 over 3. Some questions I may have asked you. Where is a trig function negative, such as where is cosine negative? And then you can just use your all students take calculus. And then this is where they're negative. Just listen them all out. Question number 11. If Luke measures the angle of elevation to the top of the Death Star to be 55.5 degrees when he is 100 meters away, how tall is the Death Star? So if you drew your triangle, here's Luke. He's 100 foot away from the Death Star. That's the Death Star circle, right? And the angle of elevation, to elevate your eyes going up, is 55.5 degrees. How tall is the Death Star? That will be my h. So if you, from the angle, you can just label what you have. Opposite, this is the hypotenuse, this is the adjacent. To figure out which trig function, you can use SOHCAHTOA. I don't have anything for the hypotenuse, either a number or a variable, so you can go ahead and just cross off the hypotenuse and everything else that has the hypotenuse. So you have tangent. Tangent of an angle, 55.5 degrees, is equal to the opposite over the adjacent. Cross multiply, you have h equals 100 times tan 55.5. There's my calculator ready equation. Multiply, and you get approximately 146. A couple of questions I may have asked. What's the relationship between angle of elevation and depression? The answer is they are equal because of alternate interior angles. Question number 2 I may have asked. How would you find the angle of depression from this picture? And then remember, this would be the angle of depression. D, depression, looking down, like you're sad, right? Looking at people. All right, let's go over question number 12. In order to find the measure of the height of the Rebel Alliance mountain, Darth measures the angle of elevation to the summit to be 30 degrees. She then moves 2 kilometers away and measures the angle of elevation to be 16.6 degrees. How tall is the Rebel Alliance mountain? So we don't know the distance to the Rebel Alliance mountain, but we know that the angle of elevation is 30 degrees. And then Darth goes back 2 kilometers and then has 16.6 degrees as its angle of elevation, and then they're both measuring height. So the big triangle there is H 16.6 and 2 plus X. 2 plus X. Make sure we're on the same page. 2 plus X. You have to add those two. Remember, it can't just be 2. The reason why is that it's not a right triangle. And then your small triangle is in orange. This triangle is this position here. That's the triangle. The work I have down here is a little bit different than what we did in class, so I'm going to go ahead and do what we did in class. So if I had this from here, I would just cross multiply, and you would get, for the pink, H equals x plus 2 times tangent of 16.6 degrees. This one, same thing. We usually solved ours in terms of H. And then because they're both equal to H, I can set them equal to H. For example, kind of doing a substitution. Every time you see H, you can write x plus 2 times tangent of 16.6. So I have that here. X plus 2 times tangent of 16.6 degrees. And then I'm going to distribute here. So I get tangent of 16.6 degrees plus 2 times tangent of 16.6 degrees equals tangent of 30 degrees times x. Here you could multiply, but I'm not going to. I'm going to, what happened here? I forgot my x. So I'm going to subtract this one to this side. And then now you're going to get 2 times the tangent of 16.6 degrees equals the tangent of 30 degrees times x minus, remember this is multiplication right here, so I'm just going to write, so it matches up with my other one, tangent of 16.6 degrees times x. I'm going to factor out an x. Move over here, so on the right side, it's basically going to be x times tangent of 30 degrees minus tangent of 16.6 degrees. And the left side is just still 2 tangent 16.6 degrees. Now, this next step is this is multiplication, so I'm going to divide both sides by this tangent of 30 minus tangent of 16.6 degrees. Tangent of 30 degrees minus tangent of 16.6 degrees. So then my calculator equation is x equals tangent of 2 times tangent 16.6 over tangent of 30 minus tangent of 16.6. Remember, do not do 30 minus 16.6 and then find tangent. Find these individually and then subtract them, and you'll get an answer that is approximately 1 point. Our value actually finds x. I can actually calculate that. 2 times tangent of 16.6 degrees. That gives me 0.5962. And then tangent of 30 minus tangent of 16.6. That gives me 0.2792. 0.5962 divided by 0.2792 gives me 2.354, and then that's only x. So if I add if I take x and I put it back into one of my equations, such as this one, 2.1354 times tangent of 30. And that gives me the answer of 1.233. Last question. Looking out of an office window, of a downtown office window, you notice that you look up 18.4 degrees to see the top of one wall center. And you must look down 33.7 degrees from straight ahead to see its base. If you know that you are 150 feet away, how tall is one wall center? So essentially what you do is you look up 18.4 degrees, and then you see the top. And then looking straight ahead, that's your line of sight, then you have an angle of depression of 33.7 degrees, you look down and found the base. You're 150 feet away, and essentially what you're doing is you're trying to find h, which is x plus y. So basically I have two triangles, 1, 2. And then if you just solve for that triangle, opposite of that adjacent, you have tangent of 18.4 equals x over 150, cross multiply, calculate a radius equation, then you have one height. This part is 49.9, same thing, opposite of adjacent, cross multiply, you get 100, and if you add x plus y equals your height, you get approximately 150. And those were the quiz questions.